Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. This time we're going to be talking about the revolver for self-defense. Revolvers have been around for a long time, since about the mid-19th century. The modern double-action revolver achieved its pretty much ultimate form about 1900, and everything since then has been just details in different calibers. But if you take a modern revolver, double-action revolver, and hand it to somebody familiar with them in 1900, they would have no questions about how it operated or what to do with it. They just haven't changed that much. For a very, very long time, they were the go-to weapon for civilian police and even some militaries. But in the 1980s, they started to be eclipsed by semi-automatic pistols, starting with offerings from Smith & Wesson and others, and moving quickly into things like the Glock 17. And the modern semi-automatic has evolved into a superior tool for law enforcement and military use. They're light, they have good ergonomics, they have, generally speaking, a better trigger than a revolver from some perspectives, and they hold 2 or 3 times as many shots, at least. As a duty weapon for professionals, it's hard to make a case for the revolver. As a hunting weapon, it's hard to find a combination of high-powered cartridges, reliability, and repeated shots in as compact a package as you get with a revolver. But we're not talking about hunting, we're talking about self-defense. Can we still make a case for the revolver in 2022? If you were hoping to come on and see me say, oh yes, the revolver is still excellent, it's do-all, it's perfect, it's perfectly reliable, this isn't that video. Because revolvers are very, very reliable, but they're not perfectly reliable, and they don't tolerate harsh conditions as well as semi-autos. It's axiomatic that semi-autos handle abuse, revolvers handle neglect. If you throw a revolver in a drawer in 30, 40, 50 years, if you pull it out and pull the trigger, it's probably going to go bang, and it's probably going to keep going bang as long as you pull the trigger and there are cartridges. I don't really recommend buying a gun and loading it and throwing it in a drawer for 30 or 40 or 50 years. That's really not realistic and responsible gun ownership, I don't think. But that being said, back to the point, can we make a case for the revolver for self-defense? Yes, we can. They still work. That's point one. Of course, swords still work, but the technology has moved on. So give it half points on that one. They are extremely reliable. Odds are if you pull the trigger, it's going to go bang every single time. And if it doesn't, you can pull the trigger again and it'll probably go bang that time. So reliability is a thing. Now, semi-autos are less reliable, but they're still pretty damn reliable, and they're very easy to clear a jam if it occurs. If your revolver jams in a fight, it's no longer a gun, because you're not going to clear it. It's extremely unlikely, but if it happens, you better have a plan. Revolvers hold fewer shots and are slower to reload than semi-autos. It's just a fact. Unless you're Jerry Mikulek or someone like that, you're not going to reload a revolver as quickly as you can a semi-auto, and you're going to need to reload it more often. And that's not good news for the revolver. However, civilian self-defense shootings typically run 2 to 3 shots and typically happen at a range of 0 to 5 yards. And typically, a criminal is looking for a victim or a score. They're not looking for a fight. They don't want one. And if you shoot them, odds are very, very good that they're going to run away. I've seen it time and time again. If they don't run away, if you hit that ultra rare unicorn committed attacker who's determined to get you at any cost, revolver with 5 or 6 shots in most cases might not be your best choice, but it can do the job if you do your job. Now, there are people for whom revolvers just work. And they're not always who you'd expect. They're not always doddering ancient police officers from, when I was one, when dinosaurs walked the earth and almost all cops carried revolvers. You'd be surprised by the sort of people who find that they favor revolvers. They have their downsides, they have their upsides. As a duty weapon, yes, they're obsolete, but they'll still work. And I do know cops who still carry revolvers and trust their lives with them, with some justification. As a civilian self-defense weapon, the revolver has a place for some people. There are very few people who would not be better served by a modern semi-automatic pistol. But revolvers have their upsides, and again, for some people, they just work, and they are simple. I mean, you open it, you fill the holes with bullets, you close it, and you pull the trigger until it stops going bang. Then you open it, fill the holes with bullets again, and continue. It doesn't get simpler than that. And that's not nothing. What a lot of people are put off by are the double action triggers. And as you can see, the gun is unloaded. And for defensive use, you're going to want to fire double action. Now, with a good, close the cylinder, Tinker, with a good trigger on a double action, it's very easy to keep the gun pointed at the target, especially at ranges from an arm's length to 5 yards. You're going to be able to put hits on target pretty easily with some practice. Get you some snap caps. These are dummy ammo designed for dry firing practice. Get you some snap caps and practice your double action shooting, because that's what it's going to come down to if it comes down to it. Now, there are some specific things we want to talk about with revolvers that are better served by going to the tabletop, so let's do that now. Okay, revolvers come in a couple flavors: single action, where you have to thumb cock the hammer for every shot, and double action, where the trigger will cock the hammer for you, and double action, single action, where you have the option of cocking the hammer, but the trigger will do the job. This is a typical double action revolver. It is a K-frame Smith & Wesson chambered in .38 Special. And to give you an idea of how little they've changed over the years, this is a model 1902. It has been customized somewhat, but basically this gun was made in the first decade of the 20th century. Now, modern double-action revolvers are what we're going to talk about as self-defense weapons. And they all have something here in this area that releases the cylinder. And in the case of Smith & Wesson and Taurus, and a couple others, you push this forward, and that allows you to pop the cylinder out. Rugers have a button you push in, Colts have a thing you pull back, but it's all right in here. Once the cylinder is open, we can verify that it's empty. And to use the gun, you fill the holes with bullets and close the cylinder. Now, filling the holes with bullets, we've covered the use of a speed loader in another video. Speed loaders come in a couple flavors. The twist and knob type, where you twist a knob to release the cartridges. And as you can see, these are all dummy cartridges with either expended primers or no primers, and they are painted with nail polish to indicate that they are non-functional. So, the twist-off type, where you twist a knob and drop it, and close the cylinder, and you're ready to go. The other type is the automatic release type, pioneered by Safariland, where you press the rounds into the cylinder, and it releases them automatically. And you let go of it, close the cylinder, and again, you're ready to go. Now, there are a bunch of different brands, but they all work on one of those two principles, more or less. So, the other option for reloading more quickly than just stuffing rounds in it is the strip loader. And these are just a neoprene thing that you stick the rounds in. And they're cheap. Speed loaders are not very expensive. These are cheap. I think I get 3 of them for $8 off of Amazon. And they are not as fast as speed loaders, but they are flat and they're very easy to conceal. And if your cover garments are minimal, depending on the season and where you live, these can be a good option. And to use it, you insert 2 cartridges, peel the strip off, insert 2 more, which is being a pain in the butt for some reason. As I said, you insert 2 more, and then however many are left, usually 5 or 6 total, and you're ready to go. Now, the thing about most revolvers, except Colts, because they're Colt, they have to do it differently, they rotate in a counterclockwise fashion. So when you're loading with a strip loader or individual rounds, you want to load on this side or rotate quickly to that side so that if you close the cylinder and pull the trigger, there is a round under the hammer. And so you load in a clockwise fashion for the counterclockwise rotation. On a Colt, you simply do it the other way. The reason that this matters is if you're in the midst of loading a revolver and you find you suddenly need to use the revolver, at any point you can close the revolver and start firing, and it's going to work. Now, this gun is .38 special. Revolvers come in a variety of chamberings, everything from suitable to shooting rodents to dropping a charging rhinoceros in its tracks. And for self-defense, as a civilian, you're going to want something in between. And we'll talk more about revolver calibers later, but generally speaking, that's going to mean .38 Special or .357 Magnum. Now, .38 Special is adequate. .357 Magnum is much more powerful and has a better track record in shootings. A little better. But it also has a lot more recoil and muzzle blast, and this can be a disadvantage because in a self-defense shooting, you want to get rounds on target as quickly as possible. And with only 6 shots on average, those shots need to go where you want them to. And the recoil and muzzle blast of more powerful revolvers will slow this process down in a way that the evidence seems to indicate is counterproductive. So, basics for a self-defense revolver. If you're going to carry it, it's nice to either have a hammerless design or a bobbed hammer, because a defensive handgun, you're really not going to shoot single action. And the hammer spur just gets in the way. It can snag on clothing, or if you're a little tubby like me, your flesh, which is very unpleasant. A smooth trigger facilitates double action shooting. The grooved triggers are fabulous for single action target shooting, but that's not what we're talking about. And the barrel should be between 2 and 4 inches. I prefer 3 inches because it's not big enough to cause issues when carrying concealed, but that extra inch of barrel is kind of nice for improved ballistic performance and a longer sight radius. Grips are something we should address. Factory grips do not work for everyone, and there is a huge aftermarket in grips, and you can spend everywhere from $20-25 on up to $1,000 if you care to. One popular option are various neoprene grips made by Pacmare or Hogue, and these do provide a very good grip, and in some designs even provide some cushioning against recoil. But I find that they tend to snag on a light cover garment and can cause the gun to print when you really don't want people aware of it. So I prefer a wood grip. These grips are treated with what's called stipling, which is just a bunch of divots, and provides a very good, secure grip. But this may be a little bit of an extreme example, because you can get quite well with a variety of smooth grips, and that's a subject for a whole video, if not a book all on its own. If the factory grips don't work for you, though, rest assured you will have no shortage of options. So, there are the basics of the defensive revolver. The single most important qualification for a self-defense pistol is it has to be reliable. It has to go bang every time you pull the trigger. And that's something the Revolver delivers in spades. There are trade-offs for that, and they're not insignificant. Most people find that they are better served by a modern semi-automatic pistol, and I can't say they're wrong. But something else that's very important with a self-defense pistol is that you have to be comfortable with it and shoot it well. Some people just are more comfortable with and shoot revolvers better. And a revolver that works for you is going to be better than a semi-automatic that doesn't. Your mileage may vary. Now, I did mention calibers. Revolvers come in a bewildering variety of calibers, from 22 rimfires, 22 Magnum, a variety of 32 calibers, 38 .357, and 9mm even semi-automatic cartridges using a special clip are chambered in revolvers. And again, you can get a gun for shooting rats or a gun for stopping a charging Cape buffalo. But for self-defense, you want a medium caliber, service caliber weapon. And 38 and .357 are the most common choices. And the advantage of a .357 is you can shoot 38s in it. If you want a trail gun where you're going to be out in the woods and might have to deal with dangerous animals, you could do worse than a .357 Magnum revolver with appropriate loads. For self-defense, you can load it with 38 Special or 38 Special plus P and have the controllability and speed you want in that role. So revolvers have a lot of versatility. They're also what I call ammunition agnostic. If it fits in the gun and it's the right caliber, it's going to go bang. They don't care if it's a hollow point, a wad cutter, high-powered, low-powered. They just all work if they fit properly. Another not inconsiderable advantage. But overall, the best thing to do if you're new to this, if you're new to the world of handguns or you're new to the idea of having a handgun for self-defense, is find a range where you can rent different handguns. Rent a bunch of them, try the feel of them, and if it feels good in the hand and seems to work for you, try it out and shoot it and see what you think. What I would suggest is that in doing this, don't neglect revolvers, because it might work for you. That's about it for this time. Thank you very much to my Patreons for your invaluable support. If you like the video, click like below and maybe subscribe. And if you want to help, consider clicking the link in the description below and supporting me on Patreon. This costs money, and honestly, I'm going to do it anyway, but I can do more and better with help. So, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.